Sixers Fix with Scott Ninnis. Join one of the Adelaide 36ers' favourite sons as we deep dive into everything past and present about one of the most storied franchises in the NBL. It's Sixers Fix, your Adelaide 36ers podcast.
Here we go! Hello and welcome to our very first episode of Sixers Fix with Scott Ninnis for 2021. And we finally made it, Scott. We're finally only now days away from the NBL season starting. Usually by this point of a season, we're more than halfway through. We're probably gearing up for the playoffs in a normal season, but this is the COVID-19 world we're now living in, and we're anything but normal. But finally, the Adelaide 36ers will begin the NBL season. We're only days away from it now. We will speak to one of their new stars on the show, and we've got some really big announcements to make on the show as well. The South Australian community has rallied behind us here at Sixers Fix, which is really exciting after we put the call out before Christmas. So plenty to look forward to on the show for this year. I'm Chris Pike, your co-host, but the man you've all tuned in to hear from, the Adelaide 36ers legend, the only man involved in all four NBL championships that the 36ers have won, Scott Ninnis. Thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon, Chris. I got to admit, mate, I'm still nervous. The season's still a couple of days away. We've seen with COVID, things can change pretty quickly, but yeah, you're right, mate. It looks like full steam ahead, at least for the first couple of rounds, and I think there is genuine excitement by a lot of people about seeing this new season unfold. Obviously, here with the 36ers, it's a new team. There's always new hope going forward, and bring it on. Can't wait for Friday night.
Oh, let's just hope we get there. Let's just hope we see the ball tip up on Friday night, because you're right. We've seen so many stop starts. We've seen so many changes across all sorts of sports. We've seen the schedule have to change already now multiple times, and it's worked out great for the 36ers. We're now starting the NBL season Friday night at the Entertainment Centre against Melbourne United. That's a blockbuster way to start the season. It couldn't be much better.
Yeah, mate. And look, I think we probably mentioned in the last episode. I mean, the start now with this first round is going to be in Adelaide and in Queensland. It's great for the 36ers. They're at home. Melbourne United, you'd imagine, are going to get rolling at some stage. Maybe for the whole season, who knows? But to get them early is probably not a bad thing. I did see that. Jock Landell mentioned that they could maybe go undefeated throughout the whole season. I wouldn't mind a little bit of what he's smoking, but bring it on, mate. It's very exciting to get the two Melbourne teams in here this weekend, and we're really looking forward to seeing some great basketball.
A lot of excitement around the 36ers and what this young and new look team can do. We spoke to Connor Henry in our show just before Christmas, and after speaking to him, I was really buoyed about what this team was capable of. And one of their stars is going to be Donald Sloan. 222 games of NBA experience that he brings to the club. Almost a quarter of those he was a starter, so it's not like he was just riding the bench. He was playing some legitimate minutes, especially in his last 3 seasons in the NBA. He's won a championship in China, and he's now going to be our special guest here on the first show of 2021. I think the 36ers fans should be really looking forward to what they're going to see from him.
Absolutely, mate. And without wanting to put too much pressure on him, I think he's the absolute key for the Sixers this year. We've got very good Australian talent, but we need that that point guard. That guy that's going to make the decisions, be that on-court general, and we've certainly got a very, very good one in Josh Giddey. But he's also 18 years old. Yep. To have that experience head alongside him, and we saw in the pre-season game versus Cairns last weekend that he looked good. And once again, I'm the last one to read too much into pre-season games, but with 24 points, he was poised. He made some big shots. I like the fact that you can get in the post with smaller defenders on him. And I liked what I saw last weekend, and I think he's absolute key for the club this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward to speaking to him later on this episode of Sixers Fix. Before we dive too far into the basketball talk, Scott, since our last show, we've gone through Christmas, you've gone through a birthday, and we've gone through the new year. How did all of that treat you and the family?
Pretty relaxed, mate. With young kids, there's not a lot of excitement. Well, apart from the kids, obviously,
Sure.
but no, yeah. Then I've stopped counting birthdays these days. So, but no, it was good. Great family time. I had a bit of work between Christmas and New Year's, which was nice. My wife Rebecca was on holiday, so a lot of family time, mate. But pretty chilled. New Year's Eve for us these days is trying to see if we can stay up at midnight, pretty much. So we did drink some very nice wines and ate well, but pretty cruisy, pretty relaxed these days, mate.
No, very, very, very good. Happy birthday for the belated birthday you did celebrate. I know that sometimes it gets forgotten, like you talked about on our last show, when it's mixed in with Christmas. So I hope you didn't get forgotten about. I mentioned it to Rebecca, your wife, and she said there's no chance of forgetting it because she doesn't get the chance to forget it. So I'm sure it was well represented. Now, the NBL fixture has already changed a couple of times. Now, it looks like we're set now without any disasters happening for the first two rounds. I think for the rounds 3, 4, and 5 that were originally announced, they've been completely scrapped and I think thrown in the bin for forever. But like we touched on, it works out a very good start for Adelaide. So the games in round 1 will only be played in Adelaide or Brisbane or Cairns, so that works out nicely. So Friday night against Melbourne United, and then Sunday against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and then 3 days later on the Wednesday, round 2 starts with the 36ers also playing against the Phoenix. Works out really nicely. I mean, you don't want to take anything for granted, and playing at home doesn't guarantee anything, but gee, it's a real chance for Adelaide to get off to a good start.
It really is, mate. And there's no excuse really. I mean, it's not like they've had a short pre-season or there's and it is. It's I think we're with the COVID situation here, I believe it's 75% capacity, so we're still going to get good numbers in the stadium, which is exciting. But yeah, it is, and it's. I like the fact that they've got a lot of home games early, and that can set you up. You can get confidence going forward. But on the flip side of that, you lose a couple of those games early, it puts a fair bit of pressure on you. But that's the beauty of a new season, mate. And this is going to be a season like no other with the build up that we've had in the current situation. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Now we'll see how much news we can end up breaking here on Sixers Fix as the year unfolds. But on our show before Christmas with Connor Henry, we did have a big announcement that Connor made when he announced what the leadership group would look like and the captaincy would look like, when he told us here that Daniel Johnson, Daniel Dillon and Brendan Tees would all form the leadership group and then in turn share the captaincy on different nights. That's since been made official from the club. We didn't get much of a chance to talk about that, but Connor was pretty high on I think that decision, and I think those three guys are the standout veteran leaders on the team, and I think it's probably a good thing to not split them and not to choose one over the other and potentially probably put one of them offside if he felt a little bit slighted. It's not the norm to go this way, but what do you think of the decision?
Oh, look, mate, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, I suppose. I'm more of the let's pick a captain and move on with it. And I think, I may have spoken about this on the podcast last year. When I was coaching, I felt, we'd gone from Mark Davis, who handed the baton, to Brett Maher, and, the two best players the club has ever had had been captains for so long. And I felt a huge amount of pressure to end up getting that decision right, and end up going with Adam Ballinger to try and he was our best player, but I try and help bring him out of his shell and to be a bit of a leader as well. And to me, there's similarities there with Daniel Johnson. I personally, I'd love to see just Daniel Johnson. You're the best player in the team. You're the captain, but I also understand the whole leadership thing, and and Tees and Dylan are veteran players, and they're going to be really important people, around the club, certainly on training days. I can't imagine either of them playing a huge amount of minutes, because I guess they're probably going to be fighting for minutes with each other as well. But yeah, I certainly understand the philosophy behind it, and look, you can only wish them well and hope it all goes well.
It's amazing, isn't it? You mentioned the captains that the club did have up until a decade ago, and the last decade it's really been a rotating slide, hasn't it? I guess Adam Gibson was captain for a couple of years, but outside of that, it's just been swapping between a whole heap of guys. Mitch Creek was captain for 1 year. Teasy was captain for 1 year. Then last season he was co-captain. DJ was captain for 1 year. Then he had it taken off him for the last 6 or 7 years. It's really been an unstable thing. So maybe that's why they decided to go with the 3 senior guys. They've all got leadership. Teasy and DJ have done it before. So maybe it's to try to get some stability. I'm not sure, because like you said, for the first 20 years, the two guys you said with Davis and Marzi, they were outstanding. But for the last 10 years, we just haven't had a real stable captain.
And maybe it's not necessary anymore either, mate. But I'm an old fart. I'm a traditionalist. Like I said, we've seen the calibre of person that we have had as captains. I'd love to see someone now be the captain for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but in reality, that's probably not going to happen. So I think that, I'm certainly not questioning Connor Henry. I guess, they sit back, him and Jamie sit back and make the decision that's, that they think's best for the club. And I have no doubt that that's what they've done.
It's an interesting one. Because DJ has now committed for 3 years, was it potentially a chance to make him captain for the next 3 years and just give him that job? Is that probably the way that you would have gone now that you know that you've got that long-term contract commitment from him?
Oh, mate, I'm not the one to speak. 10 years ago, since I coached it. But yeah, well, look, I mean, that once again, that's probably a question for someone else. But it's, I guess he's going to walk out in the court as the captain, because it's hard to see Dylan Ortiz being in that starting lineup. So for all intents and purposes, he's going to be captain when that ball's thrown up on the court anyway. So, well, I guess it's probably neither here nor there, I guess.
No, for sure. It's an interesting discussion point, and interested to hear what our listeners think. So if you want to let us know your thoughts, hit us up on social media and we will be happy to read out your thoughts, because we've got some exciting announcements of ways we're going to be incorporating our listeners more and more on Sixers Fix this season, and you'll be able to win big as well and stock up on some exciting prizes. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. Well, actually, let's go right to that now, Scott. Let's talk about some of the announcements we've got, because on our show before Christmas and the show before that when we spoke to Josh Giddy, we put the call out to some Adelaide and South Australian companies to partner up with us. We wanted to team up with some local businesses and try to help them out and try to get them to give us some support. And we thought we'd be able to do some special things. And, I guess it might be easy to go for the big companies like a Hungry Jacks, I guess, because we're a Hungry Jacks NBL or Coke or whatever. But we wanted local businesses to come on board with us here at Sixers Fix, and we've been overwhelmed by the response, and I'm really excited by the announcements we're able to make on this show. First of all, going forward for the rest of this season, our round review and our round preview segments will be now brought to you by All Star Photos. So anyone involved in basketball in Adelaide and South Australia, and indeed the 36ers, would know Kelly Barnes, the photographer from All Star Photos. You've known him for a very long time. It just seems like a hell of a natural fit for us to partner up and to help each other out, doesn't it, Scott?
Oh, mate, Kelly, you're right. I've known him. Oh God, I'd hate to think how many years I've known him for, but he's part of the furniture. He's been around for a long, long time. He does an outstanding job, and very, very humbled that he would, think to get involved in sponsoring the podcast. But yeah, very exciting going forward. He does a lot of work around basketball, and he's an outstanding photographer. And look, if that's something that you need, I certainly have no qualms at all in recommending All Star Photos.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll talk a little bit about what Kelly and All Star Photos offers later in the show, but really excited to have him on board to sponsor our review and preview segments every week. Now, next up, we're going to have a Player of the Week award that we'll award each week here on the show, Scott, and we're going to put it out to our listeners to vote on it. So we'll probably narrow it down to the top 3 players from each round from the 36ers, put it on social media to get our listeners to vote. And thanks to Australian Motors, one of our listeners each week will win a special prize pack from Australian Motors. And again, it's another South Australian company. You can go to their dealerships. They've got a Australian Motors Mitsubishi, Australian Motors Isuzu, a Suzuki in the city. It's a South Australian brand. It's been associated with the Adelaide 36ers for a long time, and for them to partner up with us here at Sixers Fix as well, it's another great fit.
Oh mate, and Australian Motors Mitsubishi in particular, great supporters of the 36ers. You see their cars driving around the streets, and the players love driving them. We have had cannot speak highly enough of basically any sponsorship in this day and age. But when the climate is as it is, a lot of people are struggling. For these people to jump on board and sponsor the club and sponsor a little podcast like what we do is it's truly humbling. It's very exciting, and we look forward to hopefully a long and fruitful future. Not only with the podcast, but with all these sponsors, and Australian Motors are a great one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this next one, Scott, is one very close to your heart. Every time we do an interview now on this show, it's going to be brought to you by Sports Card World. Now, you've talked on the show before about the card shop that you and Rob Rose used to own and operate, and this is kind of built on the back of that. And Ben and Matt and the team at Sports Card World, they're incredibly great supporters of basketball. They have an incredibly exciting collection of basketball memorabilia and cards that they have in stock, along with a lot of other things. But more than anything, it's a great personal fit. You know both those guys really well. Both of those guys are really excited to be teaming up with you because you're a hero of theirs. Let's be honest. So it's really exciting to look forward to what sort of a partnership we can have with Sports Card World.
Mate, both Ben and Matt, they're fantastic guys. I've known them since they were kids, basically, and when Rob and I had our shop, they sort of filled in and helped us out. To give you a bit of an idea, Rob and I had our card shop for probably 2 years. That might be an exaggeration as well. When we started in 95, I think it was, Sports Card World had already been operating for probably 4 or 5 years by then. Our card shop went under very quickly in 1996. Those boys are still operating. Yeah. It's incredible for something that, back when we got involved in it, I guess was a bit of a fad. It was something that people got excited about, but may have dropped off. They've been able to to continue on and be versatile in what they do. And once again, there's the sporting cards, but there's also the game cards. And Matt even gave my 4-year-old Chloe some Barbie cards a few weeks ago, which she was very excited about. But fantastic blokes. They're outstanding, and they've thrived during this whole COVID thing. And once again, to have them on board from just a small business in the city of Adelaide, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and not only are they supporting us here, and not only are we partnering up with them, but they're going to make some of our listeners very happy during this season as well, Scott, because as I said, they'll be bringing our interviews to our listeners each week. So both our players and Connor Henry that we'll speak to on a regular basis. So what we would need our listeners to do is send in some questions each week. We'll pick out the best question of the week and we'll ask our special guest, or we'll ask it to Connor Henry. And there's going to be some incredible prizes that our listeners can win thanks to Sports Card World. And the first up is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers Championship Pack from 2020. It's valued at $65, and they're going to be happy enough to give away 5 of those to start with, Scott. So starting next week, if you send in some questions for our special guests, you can win one of those prize packs of the LA Lakers Championship set it's worth $65, and I've had a look at the box and I've had a look at the packaging. It's quite the nice prize. I think anyone that loves basketball would be more than happy with that.
Geez, mate, I guess we're probably not allowed to win that ourselves. I was going to have to think up a bit of a good question. No, well, once again, it's for blokes that are small business. That's very, very generous of them to get behind Sixers Fix and basketball in this state. It's incredibly humbling once again.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about Sports Card World later once we get to their segment. But just to wrap it up, we'll also have a Player of the Year award from the 36ers that we'll announce come the end of the season. So at the end of each game, Scott, between you and Brett Maher, we'll be casting votes. So I think the way it might work best is that you'll do one game, Marzi can do the next game, and we'll rotate between the two of you, and you can cast your votes on each game. By the end of the season, we'll have a winner of the Player of the Year award, and to be honest, if anyone's not happy, then I don't know who else we could get better to cast their votes than Brett Maher and Scott Ninnis. So I think the credibility is there in that award, and thanks to Premium Wine Tours, at an incredibly tough time for the industry, this is an incredible prize. So both the winner of the Player of the Year award, so the player from the 36ers, and one of our listeners, thanks to Premium Wine Tours, Scott, which is very close to your heart, they're going to win a wine tour for 4 people, which in this current environment when, as you know, you're not getting a lot of business, that's actually an incredible prize. So that's something well and truly worth winning for our Player of the Year award for this year.
Let's keep that one a bit quiet, mate. I haven't mentioned that to my wife yet, that I've donated two tours worth $800 for.
Wow.
No, only joking. Look, it's once again, mate. Happy to do it. I'm very, very passionate about the South Australian wine industry, and the Barossa and McLaren Vale and Langhorne Creek and Adelaide Hills, etc., is very dear to my heart. So to be able to showcase that to as many people as I can is exciting. I took the 36ers on a wine tour a few weeks ago, which I think I mentioned, and just a lot of new guys to South Australia, to be able to showcase the quality of wines that we have here. It was an easy decision, mate. I'm just really, really happy to be out and about and showcasing people, what we have on our doorstep here in Adelaide, and Premium Wine Tours. I'm more than happy to get behind, what we're doing here on the show.
Yeah, so it's an incredible prize. So if any of you 36ers players need any added motivation, that's quite a prize to win. And if any of our listeners need any more motivation to tune in and find out how to put yourself in contention to win that prize as well, stay tuned to the show throughout the season. So I'm really excited by the announcements we've been able to make, and to be honest, I'm just blown away that some small local companies have been so willing to support us here at Sixers Fix. We're just a fledgling little podcast that's trying to keep afloat, and to be honest, we're just here to try to promote the Adelaide 36ers and basketball in South Australia. We don't really have any ulterior motives outside of that, Scott. So for these businesses to want to come on and support us, I think it's fantastic, and I'm really excited about what we can now do together.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I was as surprised as what you were. I think it speaks volumes of the calibre of people that we're dealing with. At Australian Motors and All Star Photos of Sports Card World, speaks volumes for the people that are involved, and very excited moving forward.
Now, we've promised Donald Sloan as our guest here this week on Sixers Fix. Looking forward to speaking to him now, just in a little bit, Scott. But first of all, the backcourt potential of somebody who has played in the NBA and played at a very high level like Donald, and then to be teaming up with a guy who is going to be drafted into the NBA in 6 months' time. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch that duo this year for the 36ers.
It's very exciting, mate, and I think it's a really wise decision by the 36ers to pair a veteran alongside Josh Giddey. Look, Josh Giddey is going to be a star and he's going to be an NBA player. I don't think anyone doubts that. But to be able to have that veteran head alongside him that he can learn from, to take some pressure off him as well, I think is very exciting. And I can't wait. And then you've got. You've got backcourt veterans, and we've talked about Tees and Dillon. You got Majonra, Sunday Deck is in that sort of mix as well. So I see that sort of, that backcourt being a very exciting one, and obviously headlined by Sloan and Giddey. Mate, can't wait to see it unfold.
Yeah, me either, and I'm sure all the 36ers fans are pretty excited as well. We'll see it for the first time Friday night. So when we come back here on Sixers Fix, we'll be speaking to the man himself, Donald Sloan. Okay, back here on Sixers Fix with Scott Ninnis. It's now time for our special guest, first special guest of 2021 here on the show. He arrives at the 36ers with plenty of hype around him, and rightfully so. If you have a look at his record, 222 games in the NBA, almost a quarter of those he was a starter. His last couple of seasons he played a lot of minutes at the Indiana Pacers for a couple of seasons, then at the Brooklyn Nets. Before that, he had a pretty handy stint at the Cleveland Cavaliers as well, and that was on the back of his college career at Texas A&M University, where he was a superstar. He was named to the first team All Big 12 Conference in a season where his team won a record 100 games back a decade ago. He's since had stints in the Philippines, China, and Germany. Won a championship with Guangdong in China. So he arrives in Adelaide with a very, very impressive CV. He looked good in the minutes we saw him play last Saturday night up in Cairns, and now there's plenty of excitement around him heading into this Friday night and this Sunday for his NBL debuts for the 36ers at the Entertainment Centre. So without any further ado, thanks to Sports Card World, who is proud to bring our special interviews for this season to our listeners, and of course Sports Card World are fantastic supporters, just jumping on board of us here at Sixers Fix, long-time friends with my co-host Scott Ninnis, and if you're at all interested in cards of any type, then head into the Rundle Mall, Region Arcade, you find them at the Shop 5 there, Sports Card World. It's been operating since 1994, April 1994 they first opened. At that time, it was right when the NBA card market was booming here in Australia, so it was a perfect fit for them to get up and running. They're one of the very few surviving stores from that era, not just in Adelaide, that's obvious, but right across the country. So obviously Ben and Matt and the team there are doing a terrific job. Obviously the store used to be the City Centre Arcade opposite McDonald's, but has now recently, relatively recently relocated to the Region Arcade, so head in there to find them if you get the chance. But of course, you can also see them find them at sportscardworld.com.au. The stock there is incredible, and as Scott mentioned, they're thriving. One of the few businesses to be thriving during this COVID era. So you can find whatever your interest is in carding, whether it's sports like the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, AFL, or the really popular worldwide card phenomenons like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, any of those popular card games are well and truly taken care of it at Sports Card World. Pick up all of the accessories, folders, sleeves, whatever you need for your collection. And as I said, here on Sixers Fix, we'll be giving away some special prize packs, starting with the 2020 Panini NBA Championship set of the Los Angeles Lakers. 5 of those to give away, starting on next week's show. But thanks to Sports Card World, let's move on Sixers Fix now and have a chat with Donald Sloan. Now, Donald, thanks for joining us here on Sixers Fix. Now, it's been a long wait for the NBL to return. I'm sure it's been a long wait for you to play basketball again after you had your season finished early when you were playing. I think it was over in Germany earlier last year. We're pretty much on the eve of the season starting now. How excited are you to be playing an official professional game of basketball again in pretty much 24 hours?
Man, it feels amazing. You get those day before game jitters still. Opening the season against a very, very good team for sure. But like you said, I haven't played a game since Germany, which was in March, and even then, I was only there for 3 games before they stopped the league. And so for me, it's been a lot of training. It's been a lot of consistent, just individual gym work, trying to stay away from larger groups because of COVID. And now to actually be a part of a team again, to be a part of a system and to have purpose for training, because you can just go in the gym every day and train and there's no end in sight. It's just, train. But now, like you say, on the eve of the season opening, it's just a great feeling. I'm actually anxious. I hope I sleep well tonight. It's just part of that mentality as an athlete.
I mean, this past year has just been crazy for the whole world. But what, in an individual sense, what's it been like for you? Because you were in Germany, you just started your season, and then COVID hit, and you had to pretty much get out of there and get back home, and you've had no basketball to play. Different parts of the United States have been in complete lockdown. Some parts haven't been as bad, but you haven't had competitive basketball to play. And then you end up coming out to Australia. You go through 2 weeks of quarantine, then you join a team for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden you fly across to the other side of the country up to Cairns, and then you come back home, and now you have a few days of training here, and now you get ready for suddenly the first game of the season. I mean, it's been an amazing 12 months for everybody, but I'm sure for you it's been crazy in its own way.
Yeah, it has, man. To be honest, it's been a weird year. You say 12 months. It's been a weird year for me altogether, with especially with COVID. But going over to China, to replace a player, which is what China does, pretty often, even early in the season. Guys like me who you kind of have a foundation over there, we kind of sit and wait and don't go too early because we know that guys who signed in, August, September, they're probably going to be back on the USA side of things pretty soon. So we're going to replace those guys either because of them not being able to adjust to the game or them not being wanting to be there. It's been fighting teams and stuff. So I go over and I normally replace a guy and have my season that way. But this past year I did that, and team brought me over due to lack of performing with the import that they had. And man, when I got there, it's like he sensed I was there because he turned it on. Like he started balling out of control. They ended up winning maybe 7 out of 8 games. And so during this whole time, while I'm in China, and this is November, December, January, they may lose 1 or 2, and then they'll come back and win 5. So I'm just sitting there training still, just training, just maybe doing some things with the team, but, just still training, not actually part of the team, not actually playing any games. And that was uncommon for me, because of what I've been able to do throughout my career and all of that. So it was a little hit, and I'm like, wow, this is different. And so, of course, COVID hit, and, they cancel or postpone the season. And so at that point, I'm like, well, you know what? Now I can actually go somewhere and play. Because at that point, I was still locked into the contract in China. So once I got home, I told my agent, like, hey, we need to do something else. Like, I can't go back to China. Because nobody knew what was going to happen with the COVID. They thought it was going to be a quick thing, and then, the league was going to restart and all of that. But, of course, it ended up spreading like wildfire. And so I talked to him. I'm like, hey, man, you're going to have to get me out of this contract. Like, we have to go somewhere and play. Like, I can't just be sitting around, because I'm a competitor. Like, the money was fine, and that was actually a big pay cut with going to Germany rather than staying in China, waiting to replace the guy. But it wasn't even about that. It was about actually competing the game. So I talked to him, and, we got out of the deal. and went over to Germany and joined Telecom Bonn. And like you say, I was there, hoorah, hoorah, part of the team for maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And first game, kind of get my feet wet. First time in Europe, first time in another league outside of the NBA, G League, or China. And, it was different for me. I know the European style of basketball is different, it's competitive, it's tough. So I was kind of getting used to the style. And then, like I say, after that third game, that was it.
Yeah.
And then it went right back to training and then trying to figure out, what's next. And now in my head, I'm thinking, oh man, I haven't done enough on film. Yes, I've done enough already as far as what I've done in my career. But just speaking of this year alone, teams are going to be trying to say, oh, well, he didn't play this year. We don't know how many games. So for JBG and Coach Connor to reach out to my agent and thinking that I would be a nice fit and a nice piece for what they're building here, it was outstanding for me. It was great. It was uplifting. It was, it was everything.
Yeah, good. Had you known much about the NBL or basketball in Australia before? Had word started to travel that things were going pretty well down here basketball-wise?
Oh yeah, I actually a few of the guys that I've played against over the years, a few of the guys I've played with, they've had stints over here in the NBL, and I follow them on social media.
Yep.
I talk to them every now and again, and even during those times when I didn't know much about the league, I'm following them, and I'm like, man, it looks pretty tough over there. I think I'm gonna stay where I'm at on this side. Try to avoid that because it looks real tough, gritty, grindy. But that's my style of play.
Yep.
And during those times, like I said, I'm following Jerome Rondo, DJ Kennedy, Sean Long, Melo Trimble, Kerry Felix, who came over for a little bit. So I know a lot of those guys. That's Blaine Rice Jr. A lot of those guys that came over, I follow them. And like I say, for them to come over and talk highly of the league like they have when I've asked all of them, hey man, how is the league? How is it over there? They've said nothing but nice things. And so they definitely let me know that, hey, it's tough. Like, you're going to have to bring it every night, and which I knew that already because that's part of my DNA. And so so for me to get here and then go up to Cairns and for them to bum rush us that first game, and then, of course, we came back and played a little more solid the second game. It was expected. Like, I knew that's what the league was built up about. I knew about the intensity and the level of physicality and the defense that guys play with. So I wasn't, surprised or shocked at all by it. But, just actually feeling it again and getting that competition in, it kind of wakes you up a little bit.
You mentioned some guys there who have played in the league before, but are you excited about the guys you're going to be able to get to go up against? And you have a look at tomorrow night and it's Scotty Hobson. You have a look at, Scotty Machado. You already had a couple of games against up in Cairns. You have a look at Bryce Cotton. You have a look at Casper Ware. Right across the league, there's some incredible guards that you're going to have a lot of fun, I think, playing against.
Yeah. Like I say, there's nothing short of great competition here. Great amount of talent, and that's not only the imports. That's the locals too. I've looked at film. I looked at how these teams are kind of made up, and man, it's not just the imports. It's not just Scotty. It's not just Bryce. It's not just Casper. And they got nice guys around them. They have a real good unit around them that kind of propels and let them kind of stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
But man, it's tough all the way around. Like even watching McCarron and Gooden, who we have to match up against tomorrow. Man, of course, Scotty Hobson is a different problem. These two guys are, as well, their own set of problems that they're going to present to us. And so, I'm all for, a matchup. I'm all for, individual tendencies and kind of locking in on guys. But, man, it's going to take a whole team effort, defensively and offensively for us to do what we want to do against the Cottons and the Hobsons and, just guys that are just seriously talented for scoring and, moving the ball like that.
What about some of your teammates? I think there's so much excitement in Adelaide about Josh Giddey and also the backcourt now between yourself and Josh. Are you as excited as the rest of us about partnering up with him?
Yeah, man, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. They've watched him, over his his tenure, of him growing up, and now, they get to see him go to another level. And I think he's willing and wanting to reach that level. I don't think he's satisfied at all with where he's at.
Mm.
I don't think he's content at all. He comes up to me every day asking different things and trying to figure out different scenarios or ways to improve. And that's what it's going to take. And so I think he's on the right track. And like you say, this city has definitely something to look forward to because that kid is special.
You've played in the NBA. You've played a lot of games in the NBA. You've started a lot of games in the NBA. From what you've seen from Josh so far, does he have everything it takes to make it? In the big time.
Oh, of course he does. He has the length, the athleticism, the vision, and let alone just the skill. He has a skill for the game that's kind of unmatched. You can teach a lot of things, and you can go into the gym and drill, certain things, but just having that feel, that pop, that's inherited. You get that. That's DNA. Some things you just can't teach. He has that, and I think he knows that too. That's why he's so smooth.
Yeah.
But like I say, he has a lot to look forward to, and I think he's on the right track with working at that. And like you say, it's not going to be easy. Guys, even on this side of the globe, guys, he has that NBA target on his back now. So he's going to have to bring it every night. There's going to be no games, no nights where he can take off. And that's where I come in, kind of let him know that, and kind of let him know, hey, young fella, like this ain't the night to take it easy. If you want to be where you want to be, you have to show a level of consistency. That's all NBA is. It's efficiency and consistency. You can do both of those things at a good level. He had no problem doing the things that he want to do in the future.
Yep, spot on. Now, after everything you've been through in the last year, and even if you go back and you have a look at the NBA right now, and pretty much every city's playing in front of no crowd right now, what's it like knowing that, pretty much this time tomorrow you'll be in front of hopefully about 7,000 screaming fans in Adelaide? That has to get the blood flowing.
Yeah, man. Like I say, it's but my last game in Germany was no fans.
Wow. Okay.
And now, like I say, to go from that atmosphere to another environment that I know is going to be, well lit. It's going to be live. It's going to be intense, and to kind of be back in that kind of that warrior mentality again. It's going to be amazing, and so we're looking forward to everybody that's coming out tomorrow. We wish it could be 100% capacity because we know the city of Adelaide is behind us and they're going to come out and support. And so, like I say, just to get as many as we can, with the protocol and the restrictions, and it's more than enough for us because we know around the world there are no fans, a lot of places,
Yeah, I mean, and away from the basketball, when you were deciding where to come next for your next stop, did you take COVID into mind when you were choosing that? And did you have a look and see that in Australia we've got things reasonably under control down here, and life's actually pretty normal right now for us? Did that come into your thinking at all? And it must be a relief to now be living here right now and having a look at what life's like back in the US right now and being able to live, relatively normally.
Yeah, I mean, I think with everything we've dealt with in the past year, we forget what life was like before COVID, like before the mask, before the social distancing, before restaurants are closed at 5 o'clock, before only if the restaurant could hold 100 customers, only 25 could be in. Like a life before all of that, me coming over here after, of course, my quarantine in Sydney was a bit of a shock because, like I say, you forget how normal life was before a year ago. And for me, yeah, for sure, that definitely came into play because I knew all around Europe, I knew all around Israel, they would have their leagues. There may not have been any fans, which I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah.
But if that's what it had to be, then that's just what it had to be. But I wasn't a fan of that. I had some calls from, like I say, from Europe, from Israel, and just knowing that there was going to be stoppage, there was going to be postponements, there was going to be cancellations, and that these clubs may want to pick up those games later in the year. I just didn't plan on having to be gone from August all the way to maybe June just to finish one season. So that definitely came into play with with talking to Coach Connor, with my agent talking to Jeff Van Groningen, that the NBL, we're on track to have a league. This is before, of course, we had everything set in stone. NBL was on track to have a league, was on track to have fans. We didn't know how many. And the cases over here were controlled. It wasn't a wildfire. It wasn't like the States, of course, as we know, and just kind of having that sense of security, knowing, okay, there is going to be a season. Even if there's some games being moved around, games will be played. It's not like you go into you're a 3-week dead period where they just canceling all the games and then going to pick them back up later on. I didn't really have the patience for that, and so it for sure led me to the NBL.
Oh, fantastic! We're very happy to have you here, Donald, and we're very excited to see you now playing tomorrow night against Melbourne United, and for three home games in the next 5 or 6 days. We're all looking forward to that to get things underway. So thanks very much for joining us here on Sixers Fix, so close to the game. We'll make sure Scott Ninnis is here to speak to you next time we have you on the show. But for now, good luck tomorrow night.
Thank you. We look forward to going out competing.
Okay, back here on Sixers Fix with Scott Ninnis, and this is our preview segment. We finally made it to this point of the off-season. It's been an incredibly long time. It's been 11 months since the 36ers last played an NBL game. It's been at least 5 months since the team, at least some of the team, started to train again. It's been the longest build up to an NBL season ever, but we've finally made it to this point, and excited to bring you this preview segment thanks to All-Star Photos. As we mentioned at the start of the show, Kelly Barnes is the man behind All-Star Photos. It's an Adelaide company. He's been photographing basketball for 25 years, Scott. As you are well aware, he managed to capture a lot of shots of you when you were in your prime. He's been the official club photographer of the 36ers for a long time. He's done some work with a couple of other NBL clubs as well. You can see his work all over the place, including on some of the history banners at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. If you go and have a look at the home games for the 36ers, it's just a great honour for us to have him on board, because not only does he have a passion for the 36ers and basketball at NBL level, but all grassroots sporting clubs is something that he's passionate about photographing and just providing those memories of a lifetime for those kids and people involved in the sports. He's been great at providing fundraising options for teams with their photos, and just a great supporter of basketball and sport in South Australia in general. All-Star Photos, over the last couple of years, Scott, it's helped to raise $10,000 for local sporting clubs just by the work done by fundraising. And some of the team photos that Kelly takes, the individual photos of teams, they're just things that are invaluable. And if you'd like to be part of it, contact Kelly at info@allstarphotos.com.au. You can find out more information at allstarphotos.com.au. And next week, I'll be very excited to announce an extra thing that Kelly has got up and running. It's very exciting, and it's basketball related. It's got a little bit of art behind it. So the combination of art and basketball is something that Kelly's put together. And thanks to Sixers Fix, he'll have a very special offer for all of our listeners as well. So tune in next week and we'll reveal more about that. But every week that we do a preview here on Sixers Fix, Scott, we're going to be thinking of All-Star Photos and Kelly Barnes, and rightly so, because he's a great supporter of ours. And we urge all of our listeners, if you ever need a photograph taken of your basketball or sporting event, there's nowhere else to go.
Mate, the main thing I took out of that is you said he had some action photos of me. He obviously has been around for basketball for a long, long time. If he's got me in my prime, he's been around forever. But yeah, very passionate South Australian. I know he's just been even over the last few days, has been the official photographer for the 2021 Adelaide Invitational Challenge that we've had here in Adelaide. Been around for a long time, and mate, all I can do is reiterate what you were just talking about as far as, if you need something done, go and see All Star Photos, mate. He's a champion of a bloke, and he will not let you down, that's for sure.
I'm sure you'll be seeing him Friday night at the Entertainment Centre with his camera in hand.
Absolutely, mate. But he won't get a picture of me in my prime. It'll be one of those before and after shots of he's snapping me behind the baseline, yelling at a referee.
Some things never change. Now we're only days out from round one now, Scott, of the NBL season. But before we get there, now I hope these aren't questions without notice. I hope you've been able to have a little bit of time to think. My apologies if you're going to have to come with some answers off the top of your head, but I thought we'd get some thoughts on the season overall before we do get to round one. Let's start right at the top. Who's going to win the championship in the NBL this season?
Look, mate. I've said it earlier that I think that Melbourne United are the favourites, and I think talent-wise, you'd have to think that. I guess I'd go with it. Well, I don't want to go with them, but you know what? I'll go with the Perth Wildcats because I love the fact that everybody writes them off every year and they just make the finals every year, and I guess you probably look at where they are this year and probably think that, maybe this is the year it all comes to an end, but, if you're going to win the championship, you've got to go through the Perth Wildcats, so I'll go with them.
It's always a safe bet, isn't it?
Absolutely.
If you go by history. Melbourne United seems the obvious choice. I'm going to go a little bit different. I'm going to say the Cairns Taipans.
Wow. Okay. Well, I like the stability with getting Machado and Oliver back. And let me tell you what I saw from Noi the other night. Like that's a superstar in the making if he can continue on that form. I think that they maybe, I don't know that they've got enough depth from their Aussies, and they're maybe hanging by a thread if they get a serious injury or two, but I guess that's a risk for most teams. But I like it, mate. I'm happy to ride. I'd be if the 36ers didn't win it, I'd love to see Mike Kelly and the Cairns Taipans win it. I think that would be an incredible thing for the NBL to see one of these smaller local teams that obviously do it tough and don't have the money that the big boys do. So I like the way you're thinking, mate. I like it.
Yeah, it would be fantastic to see. What about your top four? Obviously now we can lock in probably Melbourne, and obviously we can lock in your championship tip, the Wildcats. Who do you see rounding out the top four?
Well, you lock in Perth because they make it every year, so that's like the easiest decision ever. United, look, it'd be wrong for me to do Sixers fix. I'll put the 36ers in there, and that's there's a lot of obviously that's a lot of water going to the bridge before that happens, but it's a new season. I think probably. Yeah, I probably would have said the Sydney Kings, but the Xavier Cooks, that's a big loss. I may have said the New Zealand Breakers, but those blokes haven't been home for about 3 years at the moment, and while it looks good on paper, it's a veteran squad as well. I'm dancing around the subject here, aren't I? Okay, let me go. Perth United, Sydney 36ers.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll take it back. I'm putting Cairns in and Kenneth Sydney. You've convinced me, mate. Okay. So there you go.
Very good. All right, so I've naturally got Cairns in there. Naturally, Melbourne United. I'm like you. Until we ever see the Wildcats not make the finals, I'm going to have to continue to tip them to be part of the finals. And then I think the fourth spot is a really, really interesting one. Similar to you, the New Zealand squad looks great, but I'm just wondering how you can handle being away from home for that long. So that's the only reason I won't have them there. I don't think the squads at Brisbane and Southeast Melbourne and the Hawks are probably look good enough right now. But, I mean, that could change once we see how good their imports are. But right now, we're just judging by the info at hand. I don't think I'll consider them. So probably coming down to either the Kings or Adelaide, and we're doing Sixers fix. So let me chuck in the 36ers. So
there you go.
I'll go the Taipans, United, Wildcats, and the 36ers. So I think I went the same as you in the end.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Now, what about your MVP?
Well, it's Bryce Cotton. He's the best player in the competition. Barring injury, he'll still be the best player in the competition, and will not only that, will go down as one of the greatest players to ever play in the NBL. He continues like he has over the next 2 or 3 years. He starts to get mentioned in maybe the greatest player in the history of the NBL, and I don't say that lightly because. I've played against Leroy Loggins and Andrew Gaze and played with Robert Rose and Mark Davis and Brett Maher, and I know how great some of these people were, but this guy is special. Like he's just incredible to watch. He's a player that every team would love to have. So for me, that's a no-brainer if he's injury-free. He's the best player in the competition. I guess you look at the next level down is guys like Hobson and Patterson and Mitch Creek if he's healthy, but Bryce Cotton for me.
It's tough to argue. I mean, I think it's probably universally accepted that, like you said, he's the best player in the league when he's healthy. I'd like to throw in Machado into the mix from the Taipans, Hobson at Melbourne United, probably even Sloan from the 36ers, Patterson at the Breakers, but you think they're all fighting for second best player spot in the competition, don't you? So I think we agree with Bryce Cotton. Most improved players, an interesting one. This is probably the hardest one because we actually don't know who's in contention until we actually see the season unfold and see who's stepping up. But is there somebody who so far you've seen that looks like they might be taking their game to another level?
I think I think most improved is always the toughest one to pick, mate. I think that's the one that a lot of times it's a player that moves clubs and gets more opportunity or just gets the right opportunity, and that could be obviously there's this day and age a lot of players chop and change, and that could be any one of a number of players. I don't know. That's a really, really tricky. I'm not sure who I'd say off the top of my head. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to step their game up and go to another level. But yeah, mate, I'm sitting on the fence with this one. I honestly don't know. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm struggling too because it's really tough because we just don't know until we see the games who is in contention. The one that pops into my head from a local perspective is Jack McVeigh. I think he's going to get more opportunities this season, and without Anthony Drummond there, I think he'll be able to step up into a bigger role, and I'm expecting big things from him. Yeah,
I agree with you too. I mean, like he's been a really fun guy to be around with the clinics and the holiday camps that Marzi and I are running, and his energy is infectious, and you just want to see him do well. Where's he going to fit? He started pretty much at the 4 the other night, which I'm not, and that they are going to be able to go small at some stage. To me, that's not where his future lies. But he still had 10 points and 4 rebounds, which is very serviceable in a game of basketball. But I'd love nothing more to see Jack, even if it's not winning that award, to go up another step, another level this year.
Yeah, for sure. Rookie of the Year award. Now that this award includes the next star players, I think it's taken on some added significance. LaMelo Ball, the winner of it last year. It's probably an obvious one to go for Josh Giddey. Can you see somebody else pipping him?
Mate, don't even bother. This is the easiest, injury-free, this is the easiest decision in the history of the NBL that this kid is going to be Rookie of the Year. And once again, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me on the arse, but from what I've seen and what the glimpses that we've seen, it's a no-brainer. I mean, this kid is just destined for greatness. We just hope that he stays injury-free and gets the opportunities, and he's just such a down-to-earth guy as well. With I know both his parents, they're fantastic. He's level-headed. Pretty easy one for me, Josh Giddey.
I think it's really tough to make a case against that, so I'm not going to bother. This one's tough as well. Similar to Most Improved, it's tough to know until we see which teams are actually performing well. Coach of the Year.
Well, mate, you hope it's Connor Henry, which means the team's going to go well. People like Gleeson and Dean Vickerman probably aren't going to get it because, if their expectations are to win a championship anyway. So it's pretty hard. I guess all eyes will be on Gorgon. I mean, they, a team that won 5 games last year. You know that they're going to be better. Is it going to be 10 games? Is it going to be 15 games? What's it going to be? But they're going to be better, and all eyes are going to be on him. So that would be, if you're a betting man, that's probably the easy one, I suppose, because they're starting off on a low base as far as wins go anyway. So. That improvement can be fairly crystal clear quickly as well. I love Mike Kelly and I love what he's done in Cairns and I'd love to see him there again. But yeah, look, I hope it's Connor Henry, which means the 36ers are doing really, really well.
If the Taipans do as I predicted and go and win the championship, it's really hard to see Mike Kelly not going back-to-back. The other one I'd like to throw in there is Dan Shamir. I can't imagine how tough it is to coach a team that's now away from home. So if the Breakers end up being good enough to be at least in finals contention for this whole season, then I think that's a job where Dan Shamir should receive a lot of credit for. So we'll keep our eye out for that.
Sure.
Now, unfortunately, Scott, we've put these things on record now, so people are going to be able to hold them against us for the rest of the season. But before we have a look at round one, is there something that after this long of a wait, 11 months to see an NBL season, is there one thing that you're looking forward to the most?
Oh, look, mate, I'm looking forward to it all. I'm coming off as a bit of a fanboy at the moment, but just seeing Josh Giddey, just seeing him and his progression, in this competition, I'm very, very excited about. But I think, once again, because it's been such a long break, I'm excited about everything. I'm excited about seeing a game of basketball live this Friday and this Sunday. It's just going to be very exciting, and to see Daniel Johnson scoring 20 a game. To see Chris Goulding shooting threes, to see Mitch Creek coming in here against his old team. All of that is very, very exciting.
It is. That's why I've got such an exciting first round to look forward to. Let's take a look at the games for Adelaide first of all. First up against Melbourne United, Friday night, 7 p.m, Entertainment Centre. Anytime Chris Goulding walks into a building, there's a lot of energy there. But Scotty Hobson's there, Jock Landale's there, and I think a lot of people are going to be letting Jock know about his comments about Melbourne going undefeated this season. I don't think he's going to be able to forget that anytime soon, especially probably in Adelaide. The Adelaide fans like to show their knowledge and like to let the opposition players know their thoughts. There's a lot of fascinating things about this matchup. What are you looking forward to, and what are you expecting to happen?
Well, mate, with Landale, especially if they lose, all of a sudden you're not undefeated. that solves that problem. I can only imagine Chris Goulding and David Barlow sitting back and reading or listening to Landale saying that and going, what are you doing, young fellow? We've got a target on our head anyway, and now you've put that added pressure.
Gleeson come out and say that he's going to use that as motivation for his team.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I think that's just look. I'm their talent. I love to see it. I just think, like he's, potentially he's going to be an NBA player, and he's, we've seen what he can do, for the Boomers. But, to me, this game is there for the 36ers. I mean,
sure.
Landell's going to be a great player, but is he a better NBL player than Daniel Johnson? Well, no, I don't think so. Daniel Johnson's probably going to get 25 points and 10 rebounds on Friday night. Is Landell going to do that? Well, maybe. It could be a great matchup, but I think this game is there for the 36ers. I think that comments like that do put a bit of extra pressure on, on the team. I don't know what their pre-season has been like with what's been happening in Melbourne. I can't imagine it's been ideal. We've had it relatively clear here in Adelaide, for a long time. We've had the odd, misstep with COVID. I think this game is...
I think they might have even come straight from Cairns. I'm not sure they've even been back to Melbourne.
I think you're right. There was 5 NBL teams in Queensland last week. So I think this game is... set up for the 36ers if they come with the right mindset and once again, who knows? Like it's if there's ever a season when you don't know what the hell's going to happen, it's this one. But they're home. The Sixers are going to be sleeping in their own beds. They're going to become. Melbourne may not have been home for 3 weeks. So it's. So mate, I'm going with the 36ers. And that is certainly there's a bit of parochialism. I am parochial about that, obviously, but I also think that this is it. It's the start of a new season. Everyone starts off 0-0. I think this is a great opportunity for them to start off and get a the biggest scalp probably in the NBL.
Absolutely, and that would provide a lot of momentum for Sunday. Back at the Entertainment Centre against Mitch Creek, against Adam Gibson, some old familiar faces, and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. What's your early thoughts on that one?
A lot will depend on game one, but to me, the 36ers again, I think that's, once again, it's your home. I think the Phoenix have been in Tasmania, I believe, so once again, it's we've been very, very fortunate here in Adelaide. It's been difficult for everyone, obviously, but, we've been relatively unharmed, over the last few months. So I think this is a golden opportunity if the Sixers don't at least split these first 2 games. But I think 2-0 is very realistic, and it sets them up for the rest of the season. If it's 0-2, well, then you go the other way. But mate, I'll go there again. When we talk next week, I might be going, well, that was probably not a good decision, but I'm going with the Sixers back-to-back on these 2 games.
No, very good. And, of course, our Player of the Year voting, I'll get you to give the votes for the Friday night game, and we'll get Marzi to give the votes for the Sunday game, and we'll reveal those votes next week. And as we keep tally of our Player of the Year award, thanks to Premium Wine Tours. Now, the other NBL games for the weekend, only 3 other games. Scott, firstly on Saturday, Brisbane Bullets at home to the Hawks.
Oh, look, this is the best time to be a betting man and bet on the underdog. That's look, I'll go with Brisbane purely because they're the home team. They're well coached. The Hawks are going to probably have to prove that they're up and about. But once again, Gorgon will have them. They'll be ready to play. And if Brisbane are by any stretch of the imagination aren't, take the game lightly or don't come with the right mindset, then the Hawks could roll over them. But Brisbane for me in this early stage.
And then the next couple of games involve the Taipans. They are both at home. Firstly, they get to host the Sydney Kings on Saturday night.
Yeah, Cairns for me. I think saw enough the other night that once again they're going to be home. They've been unaffected largely, by what's happening recently. You bring Machado back. You got Oliver. I was really concerned that Newell which I still think is going to be a huge loss for them. I thought he was their most important player last year, even with the accolades that the other two were getting. I might, people might call me an idiot, but and probably quite often do, but I thought he was their best player last year as well. I just thought what he did on both ends of the court was special, and that will be missed. But what I saw from Noy the other night, that slack can be taken up pretty quickly. So I'll go with Cairns against the Kings.
And then they back up again Monday night against the Hawks. Tough one for the Hawks.
Tough one for the Hawks. I mean, that's that's a lot of travel. Cairns to me. So once again, Cairns could go in 2-0, and you get those early games at home, which is set up for Cairns and the 36ers. Good things. Confidence. Good things can happen.
I mean, you're right. Nothing's guaranteed. I mean, in an ideal world, the NBL wants the teams to be playing 14 home and 14 away games, and then the games in the hub. But there's no guarantee we're going to be able to play all of those games. So you might end up playing an unequal number of home and away games. So if you can rack up these home wins early, they could be more important than ever, because we're not guaranteed anything moving ahead. So any win might be a big win, and because you might not be able to play all the road games that you're scheduled for.
Absolutely. Brett and I met with Ben Kavanagh, the GM of the 36ers, a few days ago, just to talk about the stuff that we're doing with the club, and I felt so sorry for him. There was just so much unknown moving forward, and we've seen that over the last week with the change of the schedule, and you really don't know. It's important you hit the ground running, because you just don't know in this day and age what's going to happen going forward. And I guess we're starting to see that with the NBA. Where's that thing heading at the moment? Like, not in a good place. And I'm not comparing. We're obviously, as a country, we're in a lot better place than the US, but things can change very quickly, as we've seen it. So get those wins. Get those
cancelled and actually getting played right now.
Get those wins on the board. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. It's been a big show, Scott. There's some shows where we come into it and say, "Gee, I don't know if we've got enough to talk about this week," but an hour later, and it's just flown by. And you add in our guest with Donald Sloan as well, and it's been a massive show. Been a lot of fun to share it with you again, and a great way to start off 2021 here on Sixers Fix, and just fantastic to have our sponsors on board. So a big thank you to All Star Photos, Australian Motors Mitsubishi, Sports Card World, and Premium Wine Tours for now making Sixers Fix with Scott Ninnis possible. And we won't forget our readers, because along the way this season, you'll be able to win a weekly prize pack thanks to Australian Motors, special prize packs from Sports Card World, a tour for 4 from Premium Wine Tours, and as you heard from Scott before, that is not a cheap prize, and you'll be able to get special discounts on the fine work of All Star Photos as well. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what our listeners will be able to enjoy and benefit from here on Sixers Fix with Scott Ninnis this season. Get along to the 2 games this weekend if you can, against Melbourne United on Friday night and the Phoenix on Sunday. If not, check it out on SBS and also on ESPN if you can. Now, I'll sign off for another week. First week here of 2021. I'm Chris Pike, but I'll leave you with the trusty words of the legend himself, Scott Ninnis.
No, mate, and I've really enjoyed, as always, doing the show. I think that's the one thing I would like to reiterate. Get along to the games. Friday night and Sunday night, the crowds are at 75% capacity, and if you're a 36er fan, you cannot underestimate the home court advantage. And we love our basketball here in Adelaide, and get down to the games and support your club. It's exciting. It's a new year. It's a weird and very, very strange time we live in. Who knows going forward, what's going to happen. So get to the games and support the club, and it's a very exciting time.